I, like many other gamers, am pretty notorious for buying a game, playing it for a few hours, and then totally abandoning it, never to play it again. Josh knows this more than anything. He buys me games all the time, and I'm like, yeah, get me this, I'm gonna play it. And then I play it for like 4 hours, and then it's like, I want another game, right?
Yeah, right?
It's pretty common. It's a pretty common thing in this household where I get a game, play it for a few hours, and then I'm just don't want to play it anymore. When I find a game that I actually embrace and end up playing a lot, like, it's actually kind of interesting because it makes me wonder, like, I wonder what it is about this game that is keeping me coming back. Because Zomboid is one of those games that I played for a long time and then I abandoned it. You know, and I didn't think I was going to go back to it, but lately I've been going back to it, and I've been playing it more and more. And I think the reason why is because of how creative the game allows you to be. I think gamers like me want to get creative in a game. And a good example of a game that I really like, but that doesn't let you get too creative, in fact, this is like a criticism I've heard other people say of it, is Death Stranding. Because it just has a pretty set way that you do things, and you can't really be too goofy or creative with the way that you do things. And I love the gameplay loop in Death Stranding, but that's true. It doesn't let you get creative. And as many hours as I've poured into Death Stranding, it's really not the kind of game that you play for hours and hours and hours and hours on end after you beat it, right? Like, you can, but you're just basically doing the same missions over and over again. Well, with Project Zomboid, a sandbox, it's not the kind of game you beat. And you would think that, oh, that's probably why you keep going back to it, because it's a sandbox. No, I don't fucking like sandbox games, okay? Like, I liked Skyrim, I guess, and I liked Oblivion, I guess, and I like New Vegas, I guess. Shit, I just committed a cardinal sin. I just said I didn't really like New Vegas that much. But it's just like, I don't like sandbox games.
Yeah, like, I don't think that's a cardinal sin, especially the way, how you told me you played it.
There's nothing wrong with how I played New Vegas.
And I wouldn't say there is. But it's so hilarious, though.
Why?
Because you're just like, I'm gonna join the Legion.
Because what bothered me about New Vegas is that New Vegas is like, no matter how moral you try to be, you always end up fucking someone over or doing something immoral. I mean, that's basically the point of the game, right?
Yeah.
Is that everything's a gray area, right? And I hated it. So I was like, look, if everything's gonna turn out with me being fucking evil, I'm just gonna go full balls to the fucking wall, evil. But that has nothing to do with this video. I'm just defending my choice to join Legion because everybody gives me shit about it. I think I did the right thing. Because, Reasons, exactly. Like, you know, light Yagami, something, bullshit, whatever. One of the questions that I always have is like, what is it about this, like, literally I wrote janky little 2D game, right? Because it is a janky little 2D game. And what is it about this janky little 2D game that I keep coming back to it for? Why is it so good? And again, it's because it allows me to be creative. I can play any way I want. I can start in the city, I can start in the middle fucking nowhere, buck naked. I can start buck naked in the city with no explanation. Why are you naked? Why don't you have any clothes in your house? Why do you only have a shotgun? Who knows? That's just how you lived before the apocalypse happened. Maybe you were always nutty, right? Or you can do like a build where you start in the middle of nowhere, but you start with the necessary tools. I think I saw a YouTuber do this, and then they built up this whole, like, castle sanctuary out in the middle of nowhere, right? You can do anything you want. You could download certain mods and you can do a whole nomad run. You could do a nomad run without any mods. You can play a completely modless game, or you can play a game with 200, 400 mods. Completely change the experience over and over and over again. The game lets you do a lot. You have to have the right build to stealth, though. A lot of beginners start out with Burglar. I stayed with Burglar, pretty much favored that build the whole time because that's your only stealth build, and it's really not that great of a stealth build, but it is your only stealth build. A lot of people say you can't stealth in this game. You can, but you have to have a certain plan of action to deal with the hordes that you're dealing with if you don't want to face them full-on combat, right? You have to have, like, you have to gather them up and move them out through the forest or move them out of town. You have to light a lot of fires. If you're someone like me, that's like my favorite method. You could run them all over, you can lead them away with a car, you can shoot a gun, get them all to path over there, and then go loot the area. There's a lot of different things you can do in this game to sort of stealth your way through it, and that's just one way. There's a lot of different builds in this game. You could start as a carpenter, you could start as a repairman for some reason, you could start as an electrician, you could start as unemployed, There's a couple of gun builds. The point is that you have all these different builds you can do and many different ways that you can do things within game. You can play totally nomadic, or you can play in a chaotic city like Louisville. You could do anything you want. And that's the type of game that I love. But the thing that I love the most about it is that it's a survival game that basically plays like a Sims game once you get to a certain point. A Sims game, of course, set in the apocalypse without friends or family and other NPCs. However, in Build 43, we are getting human NPCs, so that problem will be solved, and then it really will be a Sims game. Like, when they said the Alexandria years, and I found out that that's like the city in whatever the name of that fucking show is, like, I'm like, okay, so when we get Build 43 25 years from now when I'm almost dead, then we will have NPCs, and it will be officially a Sims game. And The Sims is one of my most played games. I have like 3,000 some odd hours in this fucking game, Sims 4. And I don't even want to talk about how many hours I had in Sims 3 and Sims 2. Okay, I have been playing that franchise since the year 2000, and I ride or die by it. I love The Sims, except The Sims 4 is a complete fucking mess right now, and it's impossible to play because it's full of glitches and bugs. Josh knows. It's a complete mess, and I bitch about it all the time, and all I want is a little life simulator that I can just play and enjoy, right? I fucking love The Sims, and that's what this game is. Zomboid is literally just a fucking Sims game with zombies. There is really no way around that. I mean, you're cooking and cleaning. That's not, if you really want to clean. Everybody who plays this game decorates their base. Don't tell me you don't, you fucking liar. You know you do. Everybody who plays this game does that, and everybody who plays this game is into drip over drowning. They all go out and try to find the best clothes, pick them off the zombies. Everybody I've ever played multiplayer with has always stopped at a store and gotten clothes. I swear to God, that happens at least, well, not everybody, but most of the people. There's a couple people who just get their drip in action, but I have had people actually legitimately have me stop at a store so they could stop and get some drip. And also, I've had people make me stop a car in the middle of a fucking horde so they could kill a zombie to get a fucking hat. Drip is very, very important in Project Zomboid. And you know what it's really important in too? Fucking The Sims, okay? Like, you are playing an over-glorified Sims game with fun as fuck gameplay and combat that'll send you home packing, crying to mommy. This fucking combat is fucking hard. And it took me a long time to get a hold of it and to be able to take on hordes. And I played on multi-hit for a while, and now I play without multi-hit, and I play with the zombies basically able to detect me from a mile away and open doors and windows, and I've been experimenting with night sprinters and stuff. I play this game at the most difficult it can be, for the most part, but I used to not be able to do that at all. This game requires you to put in work. It requires you to put in hours, similar to Dark Souls, but not nearly as hard, right? But it requires you to put in work and hours to learn the mechanics of the game and learn how things work. I find a lot of my strategies rely on how the AI paths, right? Like, I know how they path because you play the game long enough, and maybe it's immersion breaking or whatever, but you play the game long enough, I don't know what that means. Like, what breaks the immersion for me is having a controller in my hand, but...
And then an isometric camera instead of first person?
Yeah, the isometric camera kind of kills it for me, but I like it, though. That's another thing, though. It's different, and this goes back to what I was saying. You know what I really like? Uniqueness, differentness. I like something that stands out and tries to get my attention, and it does it in the best way, and that's what Zomboid does. And that's why I'm convinced that this game is so addictive to so many people, because not only is it like a Sims game, it's a Sims game that has fucking gameplay that's actually worth a damn, right? And I'm not saying The Sims doesn't have gameplay, or Stardew Valley. I know a lot of people love Stardew Valley, and it's similar to The Sims, but the gameplay is very different. It's not combat. It's not high stakes or anything like that. I mean, you're doing your homework and reading books and skilling up, right? You're playing life, and that's fine. But this Zomboid is like The Sims, but with hella fun ass fucking combat. And there are times when it gets extremely tense. And in order for you to survive, because you gotta go and loot things, right? It's a looting game at the end of the day. But it has these life sim incorporations into it. And the thing about that is that is my ideal game. I have been saying this forever. But I've told Josh, I'm like, you need to make me a game. I want a life sim that's also a survival game. And what the fuck? And then Zomboid just, what was it, on sale or something one day?
Think so.
It was on sale for like $13.99, and it's normally only $20, $19.99, and like it's worth the price. It is worth every cent. And I saw it on sale, and I don't know what compelled me to get it. I think it was because I had seen like my favorite content creators playing it, and I just thought, and I found out that it wasn't just multiplayer, and I just thought, okay, maybe I'll like it. And then I started playing it, and it was like hours of my life disappeared into oblivion. It was like Oblivion. It's funny that I say Oblivion, because I was gonna say it was kind of like what happens when you play Elder Scrolls games and you get sucked in, right? Like you just, like I remember playing Daggerfall and just getting sucked in, like what's gonna happen next? What should I do now? What do I do now? That's how Zomboid is. Zomboid it's just like, because you die so much, and every time you die you learn something, like every time. And because you die so much, and because that's how you learn the game, it requires you to be kind of not a bitch about things. Like, you gotta accept that you're gonna die, you gotta accept that it's difficult, you gotta accept that like things aren't gonna get easier. And also, it allows you to change controls. You can make the game easier. You can make it legitimately a fucking Sims game where the zombies are like not such a threat, and you just go around and try to survive. The long game is the biggest issue with this game. That's the only complaint I have about Project Zomboid, but since it's in early access and they just announced that Build 42 is coming out, I think that problem's about to be solved, because now you have hunting and there's all kinds of stuff. You know, I'm not going to sit here and name off all the features coming in Build 42, because number one, I don't know them all, and number two, there's plenty of videos out there that you can find. And also, the creators themselves put out a document or whatever. They like update the community all the time on these things. So for me, what makes a game addictive is how creative you can get into it and how much it allows you to do as far as gameplay goes. Like, I need a lot of gameplay in games in order for me to like get like super addicted to it, because I mentioned Death Stranding earlier when I said you can't really get creative in it. But the thing is there's a fuck ton of gameplay in Death Stranding. You just kind of have to like engage it yourself. You can stealth the whole game and just make your deliveries and never really have to deal with BTs except for the storyline ones, or you can go and out and find BTs to basically send to the other side. You can do that. You can also engage them. You can engage mules and terrorists, and you're gonna have to engage terrorists sometimes. Like, there's areas that you have to traverse that they call their territory. So you're gonna eventually run into gameplay, but you can avoid it as much as possible prior to those times. And if you want the gameplay, you can go out and find it. And let me tell you, there's so much stuff that you can do in this game, like building roads, which requires you to go and raid mule camps, which is a fuck ton of gameplay in itself. That doesn't sound like a lot of gameplay. It's a fuck ton of gameplay.
Yeah.
It's a fuck ton of shit to go do. Yeah, you gotta fucking drive out there. You gotta take care of all the mules. Then you gotta fucking loot everything. This is when it becomes Zomboid. You start looting shit. And then you can only pile so much shit on your back and in the back of your truck, and then you got to do it over and over again in order to get these roads built. And then that's just one thing you can do. There's a lot of different like things that you can do in this game that are fun as fuck. And I love when a game offers me a ton of gameplay. In the case of Death Stranding, I have to go and find it, but it's still there. And it's fine, because the story of Death Stranding is fucking amazing, and it wouldn't really matter if there was no gameplay or not. It'd still be one of my favorite games. That's kind of an exception, though. That's like a high piece of art. That's like a high piece of art. That's like art, though. Like, Death Stranding and Nier Automata don't really count when I talk about, like, you know, games and what makes them addictive or whatever, because those are just pieces of art disguised as games. For gamers like Josh, what makes a game addictive is very different. Like, we talked about this earlier, and he was saying that, like, wanting to win makes it addictive, right?
Well, it's wanting to win, yeah, it's basically like it being challenging, but the gameplay is actually so fun, I can't stop playing it even when I keep losing.
That's Melty Blood. Me and Josh play a fuck ton of Melty Blood. That's a fighting game. And
I don't know why I like fighting games that much.
Yeah, I love fighting games. He got me.
It's my most played genre for the most part.
He got me into it, and it's like no matter how much I get my ass beat, I keep going back to it because I just want to get good and I want to win. I like winning. The feeling of winning in a fighting game is fucking so good. It feels so good to win, and like I understand that, but like for me, I like more like games like Zomboid, like a life sim type game with like a fuck ton of like, you know, gameplay, combat, and creativity into it. That is my ideal game, and that is what Zomboid is, and like it's only gonna get better with the future builds. And because of how much of a disaster The Sims 4 is, I really just It's so hard because, right, I have The Sims 3, I have all the other previous Sims games, but I like playing The Sims with a controller. So I'm kind of relegated to playing The Sims 4, and also I have a legacy save in it where I have like a bunch of generations and a bunch of Sims I care about, and it's a whole thing. But you know, I have a whole thing going on, and I don't really have much going on in my Sims 3 or Sims 2 games. And I have all these Sims games, but I keep going back to The Sims 4, and I keep telling myself, I wish there was another game that was like this, but like fun. And not just me playing it because I need a life sim to play. Another thing about Project Zomboid that keeps me coming back is how it makes me feel when I am playing those quiet, long moments. Remember, this is a game that has long stretches of silence punctuated by extreme terror and stress. But those long stretches of silence work to really get your brain thinking about why you're here and, you know, what you would do in the situation of your survivor. You play this game as a survivor, someone who knows that their friends and family and anybody else who's in the same zone as them is probably a zombie. You go around killing your friends and neighbors, people that once were normal but are now zombies, thirsty for your flesh. And hungry for your flesh. Well, thirsty in the right context. Anyway, if you play this game with music on, it gives you that sad, lonely feel. But without music, it's really atmospheric. You hear the wind, you hear zombies from far away, but the one thing you don't hear is other people. You don't hear cars driving around, you don't see other people, you don't talk to them, they don't exist. All that exists are flesh-eating monsters waiting to chew on you the second you let your guard down. I once did a video where I talked about how Project Zomboid seems to be a metaphor for fighting against death, which is why in the beginning it says, there is no hope, humanity is gone, you will die. As I go through the survival motions in Zomboid, I'm often compelled to think about my life, what it means to be alive, what legacy I'm leaving behind. As I've previously said in another video, this game continuously reminds me of what I have and what I should appreciate and how quickly all of that can be taken away. I know life is short, and whenever I play Zomboid, I'm reminded of that very fact. Usually when I'm sorting through loot, treating runes, cooking or cleaning up the base, I start to think about what it means to have everything I currently do. My life isn't exactly easy. I'm poor and I have a severe mental disorder. I suffer with symptoms I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. But besides that, I have it better than a great many people on this planet. And playing through Project Zomboid really drives home how much I should appreciate those things that I have. How much I should appreciate the people around me. How much I should appreciate the sun on my face or the moon at night when it looks beautiful sitting amongst the hammock of stars. I appreciate my life more because I've played Project Zomboid. Project Zomboid tends to remind me of Death Stranding and Nier Automata and how it always induces these existential thoughts. The difference is that Death Stranding is quite positive, Nier Automata is pretty negative, but Project Zomboid's remarkably neutral. It doesn't remind you of how horrible humanity is, and it doesn't line its pockets with hope. What it does is it presents a situation that is horrific in a very neutral and interesting manner. Yes, the music is sad, yes, the situation is sad, but it doesn't have much social commentary. What it does have is just a grueling, sad, lonely experience waiting for you to fill it with your thoughts. Thank you for watching.